I think.
We are.
Cool. Give it a little second here, just to let folks, the droves of folks, come through the door.
Yeah.
Droves of them. The hordes, the orcish hordes. Cool. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the morning show, the conversation with friends about AoS and all things tabletop, really. At an obnoxiously early hour in the morning in the stateside, a more legitimate hour in the morning in Europe. And we've got a guest from Europe today. Here's our guest, Darren Watson. Clap, 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 clap. And I'm joined by, we're all joined by our co-host, Cameron Reed of Team America / Wicked Dicey, and Korey McKinney. So thanks for joining us this morning. If you can hear us from outer space, track in a comment or two to get the YouTube algorithm going. That would be lovely. Looks like Insomniac Painting is on, saying let's go. Hopefully, also tack in some Legion comments. We'd love to hear about that as well.
I was going to say, I think this is probably going to be the first show that we've had where we don't talk about Legion, but you just, ruined that for yourself.
To break that at some point. So, hi Jam in the comments. Hey James Thompson. Yep, Darren. So yeah, Korey, take it away.
Yeah, so Darren, I think what we'll first do is let you do a little introduction of yourself, and then we can maybe jump into some topics. So, Darren, yeah, I guess in a nutshell, how long have you been playing, I guess, competitive war games, and what are some good intro questions? What's your favorite meal, favorite breakfast food? Actually, let's go with that. Yeah, and let's start with those two.
Okay, great. Well, I've been wargaming long enough that my nose hair grows and it's white nowadays. So over 25 years, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, a long time. It's been with me my entire adult life, let's say, all my formative years. Mm-hmm. My favorite breakfast meal has to be, what do I love? I love all day breakfasts. Has anyone been to the UK? You get an English fry up.
Yeah, I've had a full English, as they call it, right?
Yeah, they're my favorite. They're my favorite.
Nice, awesome. And then I guess that's probably a good segue into Gnomad Feastmasters. Does your love for breakfast food, did that influence your creation of that? And I guess a brief pause for people watching that aren't aware. Darren wrote an amazing unofficial order battletome called the Gnomad Feastmasters. We featured it at the Everwinter GT this past December. I wasn't even planning on that. That was just a coincidental happy mistake. And we had one brave soul take it, and he didn't do terrible. But yeah, I would love to hear a little bit of why you did it, the process behind it, and if you think you'd do it again / what your thoughts are on it in a whole.
And before you tell us all of the everything, I just want to say that when I saw that coming, I didn't know anything pre that coming out, and I thought it was absolutely glorious. I was like, this is amazing. Someday I will run this army. I'm also kind of I've talked to Rob about this. I'm a very anti the machine person, but when I saw a fan filled battletome, I was just this is amazing. So anyway, that just wanted.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
It's I started it. I've got a lot of opinions on Age of Sigmar, Warhammer, wargaming, etc. And I certainly got a lot about where the direction of the game, where I'd like to see it go, where it is, what I'm not happy with, what I am happy with, etc. But the older I get, the more obsessed I become with having an opinion from a position of strength. And can we swear here? I probably am going to end up.
That's fine, yeah.
So as wargamers, there's a lot of people that like to have a piss and moan about Games Workshop and the rules that they create and how they go about it, rightly or wrongly. And I was finding that I was starting to become one of those people that pissed and moaned about, the various rules writing. I, for example, I get annoyed when I see copy and paste rules. How many fucking 4+ rallies do we need in this game?
Yeah,
I was just gonna make that joke.
So I thought to myself, well, how hard can it be?
Right.
I'm gonna give it a go. And I went down an absolute rabbit hole. Like there's a lot to it. It's not, and I discovered a lot about. I'm a competitive gamer. I don't care necessarily about the narrative or what my armies look like, as long as they've got their 3 colored standard and they're on the table, and I'm not going to get topped painting points. That's as far as I sort of care. But in the process of making this battletome, I really started to care about the narrative, and I really started to care about how the models looked, and it made my whole hobby experience better. So I'm really pleased. It took a lot of time and effort. It's thousands of hours that I'll never get back. I think the payment I got back from it is I understood a lot more about the hobby. And now when if I critique GW in the future, I can say, well, actually, I've had a go at this, and I've got a bit more of an insight. But also, a lot of my criticisms I had before have waned a great deal, because it's not easy.
Yeah, I find, when I'm standing across from someone and they're like, oh, like, GW messed this up, I want to like in my head, I'm like, they're trying, like, they're trying, like, there's a million micro rules interactions that you just don't have time to think about, because you're on a schedule and you got to produce, and it happen, and problems happen. So I can appreciate, like, if you're creating a battletome from scratch, that I forgot that one thing I added in makes this whole army overpowered, or opposite, like, I did this in some way. Every people benefit of the doubt in that sense.
It's a challenge when you're doing it by yourself and you don't have the infrastructure. Yep. Luckily, I've got lots of friends within the hobby, and if I'm not very particularly good at something, I've got no qualms asking other people that are particularly good at something to come in and help. And I think because of that, we ended up with something that was different, and people have been enjoying all over the world.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
Any other events like picked it up and ran with it, or were we still the only one that were brave enough to challenge the societal norms?
So I think I was having various conversations with people, and they were going to be at loads of different events. But GW have done this thing recently where they're sort of swallowing up. That's different. They're trying to interact more with tournaments, aren't they? They're trying to create like a world championships, and I think they're modeling it on the ITC system that you guys have got over there, or at least is it a 40K thing, or is ITC?
It's for all pretty much anything Frontline does, they have an ITC circuit for. So
it feels like they're trying to get a lot more involved with that. And one of the stipulations, if you are working with GW at their events, is that you only use their models, or you convert with models and they're at least 90%.
Yeah,
their base models, right? So trying to encourage people that are running their own tournaments to use Nomads when it's going to completely sever their ties to GW, it's not really something I'm comfortable doing, and it's unfortunate. But I don't want to threaten anyone's, any help that they're going to potentially get. So I was really keen to sort of drive it, and it would, as nice as it would be to have them at loads of events, if it's going to stop people's prospects later on, that's a real shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
There would have been plenty of tournaments. I think there would have been plenty of tournaments.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. We tried to apply to be one of the the qualifying events, and it was interesting to see like the list that eventually came out, because we were expecting like it would be a huge boon to anyone that achieved qualifier status. But then they write this article, right? You probably read the article, right? Where it's just like 300 something events to choose from. And then there was not even there was just country and tournament name, no link to how to register for it, no information on where exactly it was. There was nothing. So obviously, if you're a person, right, the path of least resistance is what you're going to do, right? So for me, there's a bunch of events on there that looked cool. I have no way to register for them. I immediately forgot about it, right? So that's I think they shot themselves in the foot by not taking 10 extra seconds, because we had to put all that information in the form when we applied, right? Website, how to register, all this, right? they could have easily just copied that from the Excel table and put it in the embedded window like they did with the name and the country, but they didn't. So, I hope they will learn from that and kind of be better at their next wave of announcements. But yeah,
I think they've gotten better at getting better, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot more community sort of interaction from GW in general. I like certainly over the 25 years I've been in wargaming, it seems like it's on the up. I was lucky enough to go to the American Open last year. I was invited over because I'd won the LGT. Yeah. And like I thought the lads there put on a great show, and it was really nice to see that they're trying to create something. But if they're just new to it, it'll get better. I'm sure it will. They've got the money, haven't they? Fucking
they do, yeah. They a few billions, yeah.
This is like my once per show time to say, like, Miles is new to the hobby, but I do find that it seems like GW started, they had a lot of shit together, and then they like dropped off the face of the earth, got a lot of shit together, dropped off the face of the earth. And I feel like when I came into it, they weren't at all touching tournaments. And then now there's this new upheaval of like, oh, if we control tournaments, then we can control the models that they purchase, which means that they have to come to us. And it's a little like, it's great. It's like, I hear a lot of positive support for that. And I think, I've talked to like Sam, I've talked to Rob, and they're like, this is great. Like, I'm glad they're getting their stuff together. But at the same time, it's like, it's a little sour. It's like, where were they like the last 5 years, And it's like, damn, you got to toe that line. Because again, we're like, because I don't know if you know this, but like we do every winter we do Ironweld, and then we're hoping to throw other tournaments like in other states and things like that. And so like, do we like take the T? Like, do we sign up with the GW? Like we purposefully at this point have not taken any prize support from GW because I've actually been to an event where I wasn't allowed to shout out another event because it was a GW event, and I was just like, this feels like a little rough. And so again, it's like navigating new waters. And I don't know, we'll all find, it's all about like really playing with friends, but there is like a line there where it's like, do we support the corporate machine? I feel like when they went public, that was the problem. That's my conspiracy theory. So
well, they still haven't decided if they're a rules company, a models miniatures company, or what they are, right? Like
they're a book company.
Yeah, they're a book. Yeah, well, that's like what they think they are, but
I'll tell you what they are. A very successful company.
This is true. Yeah. I remember
they're making that money, aren't they? Crikey.
They are, yeah. So someone said can't tell if large coffee cup or small Korey. It's I think it's both. No, it's definitely a large coffee cup. It's like, it's citadel glue for
they'll put that in there.
I saw this morning. This is our new meta. It's like paper cutouts.
Oh, paper cutouts.
Army. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. And so maybe that's the route we all take it.
So Miles, I don't think you've ever experienced me showing up with just all empty bases to try out an army.
No, I totally, and I think I've done that before.
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah.
I would prefer the paper hammer over empty bases.
Yeah, empty bases gets a little confusing and hard to move.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great news, and love to hear the thought process behind Nomads and kind of where it sits. I hope people will continue to run it at events, because not every event's a GW sanctioned event, and not every event will be a GW sanctioned event. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of room for it there. Maybe switching gears here, let's chat about your, I guess, experience last year on Team England and kind of the lead up to the win at AoS Worlds. I know it's kind of stale news now, but I feel like that was a very cool and important part of your gaming career, and I think that ultimately led to what you're doing right now with Onwards AoS. So definitely want to hear about that and how it ties in, and take it away.
It might very well be my peak. Yeah, it was fantastic. Worlds. I'd been to the, before COVID, we'd won the ETC in Serbia. Yep. And that felt like, I mean, Team America were there, for example. I met Sam Gould and Bill Souza and all these other loves.
that was the first year they did AoS ETC, right? That was Serbia.
I wouldn't know if it was the first year or not. I'm not 100%. Maybe it was.
I think it was, because that was like Sam was on the team. Yeah, if it was Sam, I think that was the first year they did it. Because I think Sam only went once. I might be wrong on that though.
I've got Sam's top as well, so I had a choice between Sam and I went with Guan.
Love it.
Yeah. So and that I thought was fantastic. That was my first sort of experience meeting the international scene, meeting people from all over. Like absolutely, and I'm fascinated by different metas. And at that time, I think the world was a little smaller. The knowledge sharing wasn't as proficient as it is nowadays. Like certainly TTS wasn't a thing. So you definitely had very, very different styles from each nation. You know, and that I found fascinating. I really liked the French, for example, when I first experienced their meta. This is a good few years ago. It's changed quite a bit now, but it was all very minimum character, maximum spammed units that don't die, basically. Completely different to how we played in the UK. Americans, I found, I'm not sure if it's the case now, but I was surprised how conservative and restrained the gaming was. I was expecting gung ho, and that's probably because I've watched too much Hollywood. But in actual fact, the gaming that I saw at Serbia from the Americans was very conserved and considered, and there was a lot of going on, basically. Which I felt, that fascinated me. I'm naturally quite aggressive, so that I can, you can see when someone's very different to you and how they play, you notice it more. So yeah, that was a fantastic event. And then we had COVID, and then I got to go to Worlds, and it was even better. Yeah, it's like people from Australia and bloody just absolutely mad. It was a fantastic time, and it was some of the most stressful days of my life. I've got problems with sleeping. I've got insomnia.
Hey,
let's say for Miles.
If I'm highly sort of stimulated, let's say, which I was at the time, I basically didn't sleep for 5 days, because I am because of the choices I make with what I eat. Let's say, I don't want to say the dreaded V word. There was not much for me to eat there. It was basically potato. So I didn't sleep for 5 days, and all I ate was potato. And then I had to have some of the most competitive, stressful games of Age of Sigmar you can imagine.
I think I texted you at one point, when you find vegetables, let me know. I was like texting all the vegans and vegetarians that I knew that were there. It was just like, I have only had street meat, and like I can't. I can't.
In one of the restaurants, one of the evenings, I said, is there a vegetarian menu? Because we only had one menu, and it was just basically meat. And he went, yes, there's a vegetarian choice. There's a vegan choice there. We have fried cheese for the women. Oh my God. Did you say that out loud? Yeah, so I felt nice and welcome I mean, Prague itself was wonderful. The people were wonderful, but that attitude I found quite funny. And then, the gaming itself was sort of next level. It was,
they didn't put like butter in the potatoes.
They did, yeah. And
doing that.
So I had to.
You'd eat like raw potatoes.
No, I ate the potatoes with the butter on, because waste is worse than that.
Also, surviving is better than waste. So that too.
I'm surprised that there hasn't been a Worlds in Iceland. That's right in the middle of everybody.
Oh, that'd be grand.
Yeah.
Iceland.
Miles has an idea for an Iceland event that I think we're gonna look at.
Wakefield hammer.
It's called what did I call it, Korey? Remind it's US invades Europe.
Yeah,
and we have like this like old like 70s airline like with like a host or hostess on the image, and it's like, because everyone can be, Iceland's really cheap to get to from the US.
That's how they get you.
They want you there, and then you spend money on fish and stuff. I've heard that joke before, but anyway, but yeah, I really want to do that, to meet in the middle with everyone. I think it would be really fun.
The problem is, I think it's cheap because they subsidize the tickets so that they get people there, and then once you're there, it's expensive.
Well, then you're just buying a lot of beer.
It can't be more expensive than eggs are right now. I had to make an egg joke. I don't know.
There you go.
Are eggs expensive?
I don't know. I don't look at prices,
Gas
and that's
and
probably
milk.
why I don't save a lot.
Well, if you build it, they'll come.
Oh yeah, no, it's on the docket, and actually that's something we've learned a lot since we've started this journey of like trying to host actual events. Is like and I think I randomly stumbled into a podcast the other day where I think you were on it or something, and it was just like there are so many events now competing for people's attention, and so you've got to like pick and choose your battles, and also to just like there are things that are like quality versus quantity, and so like I mean if Korey, Brad, and Cameron and I had our druthers, like we'd throw 1,000 events and it would be great, but like when you look on the BCP app, it's like, oh my gosh, like there's like 10 RTTs this weekend and 4 GTs. Like which one do we go to?
Isn't it glorious?
It is. I was just gonna comment on like when I first got back into like competitive wargaming, maybe like 2014, which would be right after I got out of college. It was so hard to find events. Like there was like the big ones, right? Like Adepticon. I don't even think LVO was around yet. No, Slaughter's only I think 5 or so years old. But like, and then like literally like it was like we were like supercharging, and then COVID happened, and then I think after COVID there was just this massive renaissance, and like everyone wanted to game. So like now we are just spoiled for choices, which is really amazing.
So it's the actual Renaissance, like not the one we've talked about like in 1400s, 1500s. It's like the actual Renaissance of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Because wargaming is the world. So, cool. Yeah. I also wanted to touch on Bloodbowl because you have to convince me, Darren, of that Bloodbowl that I should love Bloodbowl. Every show we try to convince Miles to love another system, but I think I've got my head so like I'm just like Sigmar. But it sounds like you play a lot of that as well.
I used to play a lot more than I do now, but Bloodbowl is fantastic. Some of the advice that I give on the coaching that we're going to sort of discuss later is some people get triggered by rolling terribly.
From
So when you get bad dice, you just rage, don't you? Even if you're and the advice is either go start playing Zinch because then you can control your dice, or start playing Bloodbowl, because if you can learn to get through a game of Bloodbowl and not be triggered by the horrendous dice that Nuff will give you, then you can take that skill with you into your competitive Age of Sigmar. Bloodbowl will fuck you hard. Right.
So that one you can just leave your emotions at the door and just kind of throw dice and be fine with it, is what
Absolutely.
you're saying. Yeah.
It's because in a game of Age of Sigmar, you roll hundreds of dice, and there's only a couple of moments that you really focus on. Where at Bloodbowl, you're only ever rolling 2 dice at a time. So when you roll double skulls, which is the equivalent of double 1, it really fucking hits you in the head every time you do it. Whereas in Age of Sigmar, that only really matters if you miscast, for example, doesn't it? And then in Bloodbowl, the worst you can probably roll is triple skulls, which is 3 ones, and you get a reroll token. So sometimes you roll. The amount of times that happens to you, triple skulls followed by triple skulls. Like it happens so much more than you
lost. Like, do you lose the game immediately if you roll triple skulls?
Something fucking horrible happens. Basically,
it just explodes into blood mist. Like,
it means that you fought, but you fought. So you've just thrown a block and you fall over, and then your opponent gets an opportunity to get through your armor, which is a 2 dice roll, and then if they roll 10 or more, sometimes you can just be dead. And if you can learn to go through that experience, and the point of the game is violence and is for stuff to die. So it teaches us to like enjoy, if you can enjoy yourself blowing up and dying as much as your opponent, and allow your opponent to enjoy them killing you as much as them. If you can get through a game of Bloodbowl and be happy with that circumstance, and you can take that to the table, and the real point is to try and keep yourself nice and calm and as chilled out as possible during a war game, because the calmer you are, the clearer your mind, the better decisions you'll make. The better decisions you make will lead to more victories. So the whole time you're pissing and moaning about, I haven't fucking won priority in 3 turns, that's not going to help you win a game of Age of Sigmar. And Bloodbowl is like Age of Sigmar but on crack when it comes to luck. So yeah, Blood Bowl is a really good game to help you with your competitive.
So Blood Bowl is the Zen of Sigmar. So like you look, that's where you guys get your calm emotions when you roll 3 dice on an admiral and he fails horrendously and you've lost the game. So
I'm still a work in progress, brother. Don't worry. Yeah. I still throw my.
Korey and I played the other day, and I was like Slaves of Darkness against actually the 2 games that Korey and I played recently, where I just like rolled to my death, and I was like emotions, bottle them. Like, so yeah, it's definitely, that's another, I feel like that's like life skills for this game.
I think in that game specifically, what with the straw that broke the camel's back was I was trying to figure out, all right, it's turn 5, it's lurkers below, how can I win? I was like, oh, I'll just rally a Vanguard and that'll give me 6 extra inches of movement, and I don't need to fight anything. I can just walk onto the objective.
It was rough. It was a
rallies are fair.
Defeat. but anyway, like it's good. I mean, again, like I think I started out like oh man, I lost a unit, like, and over time you kind of get numb to that, but then you get numb like when you lose like a game on like some crazy mechanic, then you're like, oh god. So it's a process, like you said. Like we all have to emotionally grow.
And it depends on if you're having a good day or not, doesn't it? Sometimes I'm a real child playing a game, and afterwards I think to myself, oh god, why am I not listening to my own advice?
Yeah. That's a good segue. Just a quick time check. We're 3 minutes from the top of the hour. Can you go a little bit over, Darren, or do you have something right at 2?
Oh, I've got
right, cool.
nothing until 5 o'clock.
Awesome, cool. Yeah. So then, so Darren, you recently started a entrepreneurial pursuit, coaching AoS. Your Patreon is called Onwards AoS. People can find it in the video description below. So yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that was like we're kind of getting into some of the introductory points when we first had our call. And obviously don't give away too much of the secret sauce, but we were talking about how like the mental mindset of the game is so important. But maybe first, yeah, let's talk about your Onwards AoS and how that started and actually how it's kind of evolved in like the last month and a half or so.
Yes, we're flying at the moment. I think competition's coming though.
Oh yeah.
That's another subject. So ever since I won, I came 3rd at the Hampshire GT, which is my local tournament, I think back in 2015, and I did it with Sheraton. And at the time, you only ever saw Sheraton at the like bottom tables.
Yep.
And one of my games was even streamed by GW. And it was the Croaknado, let's say, but it was the early days of Croaknado. You know, he had this spell that was 3 dice times 3 distance, then everything within that distance took D3 mortal wounds, and you could add the Astrolith would double that distance, so it was table wide. Then he had another, then he kept
his Balewind, right?
Yeah, the Balewind, so he couldn't be touched, and you could summon onto the Balewind because you couldn't move onto the Balewind, but you could summon onto it. So you could just have your chameleon skinks jump on it at the bottom. Because it counted as a piece of scenery back then. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. So I did quite well with Seraphon when other people weren't. And then ever since that moment, I've had people messaging me over Twitter or Facebook at the time. You know, how did you do it? What are you doing that we're not, etc. And I started giving out advice, let's say, and that kind of built over the years to the point where I did better and better in Age of Sigmar tournaments, and more people heard that I was answering questions about list advice and, you know, what to use and how to approach the game, etc. And it was getting to the point where, because it's 24/7, you know, we've got Age of Sigmar is now global. We've got a huge American scene. There's a huge Australian scene. There's a huge French scene. Emerging scenes in Italy, etc., Germany. The questions that were coming at me were like 24/7. So I'd go to bed with questions from like America, because you're like 8 hours behind, aren't you? And then I'd wake up to questions from Australia. And like I'd get like, and there, when people will ask you a question, it tends to be like, oh, what do you think of this list? and you're like, oh, fucking hell. Right, okay. Who are you playing? What's your play you know, it's not, I can't just simply say, oh, it's a good list, change this, that, and the other. Because if people don't understand the changes, then it's not particularly good advice, is it? So I'd always go right into it. And each question, you know, sometimes it would be like half hours research. Then I'd come back to them, ask them a bunch of questions. And then what I imagine the interaction they were expecting was, oh, just change this, that, and the other. But I made it something that was much bigger. But I hope and I think it was much more useful. But that was taking up 4, 5, 6 hours of my day. And my poor fiance was getting a bit pissed off with me when I was walking around the shops, you know, and I'm thinking about someone's list and my phone pings and I start looking at it. You know,
my wife yells at me for the same thing. Like I stand in the middle of the kitchen with my phone and I'm just like this. She's like, Are you lost in the trolls? I'm like, yeah, I'm lost in the trolls.
Yeah, the world just disappears, doesn't
it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Where I'd built it up, but I hate leaving people behind. My DMs are always chocker, and sometimes I forget, you know, a chunk of people, and I always feel really bad when I go back like a week later and I'm like, oh fuck, I never got back to that person. I don't want anyone to feel like they hadn't been seen. You know, that's not this feeling, is it?
So can we expect Bloodbowl coaching services soon?
Well, my friend Wayne Peters, the guy that started Brucebowl, is looking to do it. I'm encouraging him to do it. He's got his own little Discord space up at the moment. He's just had 2 twins, and he's in his 40s, so he's fucking knackered. But he does he's like our club's the Bruces, and Wayne's the the very good Blood Bowl player. So hopefully he'll be looking to do some coaching for that in the future. Nice. So I started it as a means to not make money necessarily, although that's nice, but just to like order it so I could get some structure within my life. And my fiance is Alex, she's a lot happier now, because if I go like, oh, Korey, I'm going to be playing Korey tonight, okay, no worries. You know, and I'm such a fucking adult. I've got a diary now, and nice. I fill it up with all my little one-to-ones, and I look at it every morning and I feel 10% more mature. Fantastic. Yep. So it gives me a lot more order, and I find as well I think it's hitting home with people, the advice that I'm giving, because there's this relationship where people pay for something, they value it more, you know. Whereas before I'd give someone advice and they'd come back to me a month later and they'd be like, oh, I lost again. I'd be like, oh, did you do this? And they'd be like, no. All right, okay, brilliant. You did the same thing again and it fucked up. Yeah. Whereas now I'm finding that people are listening, I think, a bit more. And I think that relationship. So, and also many people, after I'd give them advice, they'd ask me, oh, can I give you some money? I know you've put hours into this. And I always felt really terrible accepting it. So I don't know, about 3 years ago, I got like a little coffee link where people could then send you money if they wanted to. And I'd always say, advice is free, but pay whatever you value. And people would pay a lot more than you'd bloody imagine. So people do really value this. And I think it's important to give people how I got past my because I felt really bad taking money from people. How I got past that is, I think it's important to be grateful, isn't it? And giving someone an avenue to be grateful is also important. You know, if you're going to be giving your time to other people, then they want to compensate you for it. But some people would compensate you so much. I once told someone, like, they asked me a question, would you take this artifact or this artifact? And I said, I'd take this artifact. And I gave them a list of reasons why. And they sent me £75. And I was like, that's fucking mad. That's fucking mad. Don't send, spend that. There are, I don't know, student nurses over here earn less than £12 an hour. Like, give that to someone that's fucking working their guts out, not someone that's giving you list advice. That's mad. So for me as well, it's a way to structure, like, this is an appropriate amount to compensate me for my time. And I think it's a lot fairer for everyone. Does that make sense? So that's why it started. And it's really grown. It's been pretty popular. We're doing all right, I think.
Yeah. How many coaches do you have now? Because it started as you, and you recently brought on, I think, like 4 more? Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've created one thing. We're all wired differently, And for anyone that sort of joins, I want to make sure that you get as much value out of it as possible. But my way of playing isn't necessarily the best way for you, or what I see in you, or how we interact might not be the best experience for you. Still be really good. I'm a lovely chap. But there might be something like you, Korey, for example.
Yeah.
There's someone I think there's a lot more suited to what you wanted to get from.
Yeah.
Is it okay to mention that you're there?
Yeah.
So I brought on, I think what I think I've created is a space where people, if they want to be coaches and they've got something that they can offer, and it's for them to come in and, you know, coach people. We've now got Luke Morton, who he's got his fingers in all the pies. You know, he's got really, really good sense of the international meta, and he plays TTS a great deal. And that's a fast meta. You know, as soon as any rumors are out, they're all on TTS, like playing with the rumors, let alone the actual game. Do you know what I mean? So they're ahead of the curve. They're far more forward than I am. They've even probably got more insight than the playtesters. You know, the playtesters will have a great deal of insight, obviously, but I think the people on TTS they're able to play a lot more games a lot quicker. You know, with the rumors, and then we've got Philip Kartev, who's the recent Russian master. Fucking hell, we've got some names, haven't we?
Yeah.
He is so. He's a university lecturer, so I'm not trained in teaching people. I've got no fucking idea. I'm making that up as I go along. Whereas he is, you know, he knows what he's doing. So that's nice to have that experience. Simon Weekly, who's the captain of Wales. His brain is so like just pure efficiency. I really love the lists that he creates, because he tries to play the game in a completely different way to a lot of other people. So we're really lucky to have him. Got Nathan Watson, who is the vice captain of Scotland. And Nathan he himself will tell you he's not a list innovator, so he doesn't come up with the ideas, but a skill that Nathan's got is he's able to scan the ecosystem, see what other people are doing, and he knows what's going to work for him, and he'll take that and then he'll get results out of it, and he gets them very, very quickly. And that in itself is a skill. We can't all be list innovators, but if we are going to be net listing, because we don't have the time, or we don't have, those aren't part of our skill set, then I think it's very good to have someone that can teach you how to maximize that net listing, that net listing approach. I have a large spectrum of skill, I think.
That's interesting. So I have this concept that I was like recently talking with like Miles and another one of our friends, Brad, about like how I feel like in wargaming there are three types of people when it comes to like lists, right? There's the architects, the engineers, and the pilots, right? So like an architect will create a list that's awesome. The engineer refines it, tweaks it, gets it better. And then you have the pilots, which is just like a nice way, not a nice way, but there's nothing wrrong with net listing, because I am a habitual net lister. I love it. Like, why build a wheel when you can buy a wheel, right? Right. And then you have the pilots, right? So that's cool. Like, you just pretty much like also referenced it, but in with different words.
Yeah. Well, yours are better, more concise.
I just want to comment real quick on like how you're saying like you didn't necessarily want to charge people for advice and things like that, but like I think that's like the way you went about that was really phenomenal. Like it was like, okay, like now I'm like taking my time and giving you like an appreciative level of like here's $25 an hour or $50 an hour or $75 an hour for my time, you know, pay me commiserate to this. And I think that like in general, like because we come from this like society of like our work is our work and our game is our game and we can't separate the two, like I think we need to like all push ourselves out of that, because like you're getting paid for things that you enjoy and are passionate about. So like you can charge your friends and your community for that, because like it's goodwill, it's good stuff, and you need to be compensated for that.
To learn it.
And then we follow our passions more, and then more money gets funneled into our community in general, and then more good stuff comes out of that, rather than like I'm going to work in my work world and just put all of my time and energy into that and not create anything creative, right? And so I think it's really great that you're charging people again on that scale of like, this is what this costs if you would like it, and let's all benefit this equally, And so anyway, I just wanted to comment on that because I know like running this line is difficult sometimes. Like when we first brought events into our community, like I was really weary of being like I don't necessarily ever want to do club fees, but like there's a point at which like, you can do club fees and then, buy everyone free beer all the time, like, I mean, there's just like a point where like the community in general benefits from it. There's a point where that doesn't benefit everybody. And there's like a nefariousness about that, but I don't think that any of us are going about that quite that way at this point. So anyway, I don't know, just something.
No, I definitely had to learn to be comfortable with it, and I sort of relied on the opinions of the people that I was working with. So when the pricing structure was a lot lower when I first started because it wasn't a polished product. I didn't know if I was going to be any good at it, and I didn't know if it was going to be popular. Whereas sort of 6 months on, I then approached everyone because I kept getting told that I wasn't valuing my time enough, and I asked everyone that was having one-to-one time with me, well, what would you value at it? What would you pay? And they all said at least double, which I just fucking blew my mind. It only went up 60%.
Which is still very reasonable, like as a person like in it, right? Like it's like I spend that money a day on like a coffee and a breakfast sandwich, right? Like if you convert it to like a weekly price, right? So it's like I don't spend that much money on coffee and breakfast every day. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was, and for me, I liked that because it meant that the community was sort of setting the standard rather than it wasn't me sort of driven. It was, and I really like. I think it's gratitude's super important. It's like an integral part of myself. And what I hadn't realised is that if you don't let people pay for something, or then they've got no avenue to express their own gratitude, and like that makes them happy, and it's selfish, isn't it, to just keep that for yourself? Does that make sense? Like gratitude, like paying someone for a service and knowing that they're benefiting from it, that makes you feel good as well. And one thing one chap said, he's in the chat actually. He said like I want to. If me paying for this supports you and it allows you to do it in the first place, it allows you to make a success of it, and then you're going to help loads of people. So looking at it like that was pretty cool as well. That's how I got over it.
Bob said, I actually talked to Bob once about this, and I don't know if you know Bob, but anyway, he said, we draw the line at when the wicked Dicey folks are riding around in sports cars. And I think that's like pretty valid. But real quick, I just want to just back up just the touch, which is like for folks listening, what does it look like if I want to reach out to you? If I'm like, if I happen to go like 1-4 at LVO and I'm like, I'd like to go 2-3, that'd be great. What is that like? Is it like there's the website, right? So, and then you submit a form, and then you're going to get back to whoever that is, and then just like outline that really quick for anybody who's curious.
It's a basic Patreon setup if you're familiar with Patreon. So it's like a subscription service basically. So you come to the website. I think it's Patreon / or / whatever onwards AoS, and it gives you various tiers. So you can join up for £5 a month is the minimum, and that'll give you access to the Discord and like a load of like free content. Well, I say free, it's £5 a month. A load of content or existing content that's there. You can pay a little bit more, and like once a week, the coaches will do like a fight night where we stream a game on TTS, and we explain with our opponent, what we're doing, because it's not just the how you go about something. What I find super interesting and what I think is the most valuable content is the why you're doing something, the thought process behind it. You don't necessarily get that within bat reps, or if you're watching like a competitive game live, let's say. So that's the sort of content that you can expect. And then there's list challenges. I really enjoy list building, and we've got one thing that I really like in the Patreon is like I'll create a list, then I'll send it to the patrons, and I'll say, look, you need to write the perfect counter and explain why it's the perfect counter. Because every time I crack a list and I think, right, I've got it, the first thing I do is write its counter. It's just a good way, I think, to keep the juices flowing. And get people will often ask me, how do you get good at list writing? Well, fucking write lists. Like, it's not rocket science. The more you do something, the better you'll get at it. And then the winner of that gets to play me on fight night in front of everyone and hopefully embarrass me and smash me. And then Then there are tiers where you can get one-to-one coaching, and that's been really really rewarding. I absolutely love that, chatting to people all day about their, you know, what makes them tick, and I try to be a little more holistic with the approach. It's not like, right, do this, do that, take this list because it's winning. It's much more, I always try to match people, try to understand the people and their personality and what they like to do in the gaming, and make sure that we find factions and lists that match them as people, because I think there's often a disparity. If you're an aggressive player and you net list with a defensive build, then chances are you're not going to do very well with it, because you're not using it how it's intended. So I try to teach people how to sort of do that. And then once you outgrow me, because I'm more of a generalist, I'll then pass you on to more specific coaching that are probably like Korey, for example. Mm-hmm. He's trying to really crack Slaves to Darkness, and Luke Morton has got a lot of experience with Slaves to Darkness, and I think that, well, I assume you're getting on with Luke.
Yes,
so the highest is you can play a game of TTS as well. Is that so? There's a lot there.
Yeah.
You know what the fallout of this talk is? That everybody is secretly on Wicked Dicey going to sign up for your service, and we're not going to tell each other, and then all of us are going to come to the table and have like expert advice and stuff, which is great. So
I've got something that's hilarious, right? So one of my favorite questions to ask people when they first come to a coaching session is like, why are you here? I'm from a sales background, and we do fact finds in sales. Mm-hmm. So I do a little fact find at the beginning, and I ask people,
identify the pain, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got these two chaps that I was super surprised by this. Like, what's your one of the questions is, what's your goal? What are your goals? And they're like, are you going into any tournaments, that sort of thing? And they're like, no, we're not going to any tournaments. I'm like, okay, why are you here? Well, I play my mate all the time, and I want to beat him. And then he found out that he was, so it's like, well, I joined up to him. They only ever play each other. People have all got different motivations for wanting to get coaching, and it's not necessarily to do well at tournaments. Some people want to learn. Some people just want to learn how they can get more out of gaming in general. Let's say I find it fascinating. People fascinating.
That's really
cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's a good pause point.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, wait. I have one more thing.
All right, go, Cam.
Tell us, Cam.
I have a better idea than Iceland, potentially.
Okay.
So, that...
Yeah.
That's Iceland, right? Oh,
Yeah.
You should go to Svalbard.
Yesterday went to Svalbard. It looks very cold, and you guys know that I like cold. It's my favorite.
It's like the most northernmost town, and it's like on a glacier.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll just move Everwinter there.
There's polar bears there.
I think they have like multiple, like there's like a mile of like ice layered on top or something. I don't know. It might not be a mile, but it's like a lot of ice layered on top is like the ground. Like that is the ground. Sure. Ooh. We're going. We're not going in the winter.
So I've really wanted to go for a long time, and I think we should roll a Sigmar tournament into that.
Yeah.
And they don't
Svalbard. That just
sounds. If you walk outside you have to bring a rifle with you, because the polar bear like risk is very real.
Oh, I couldn't shoot a polar bear. Oh.
I don't think it doesn't happen.
It's just a warning shot.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like this, it's either like dark like this for like, I think like 9 months of the year or whatever, and then it's just like pure sunlight for the other 3 months of the year. So super weird.
Mess you up. Might be easy to sleep there though if it's dark all the time.
Yeah, I love this, Cameron. Let's make it happen.
I don't know how you get there. I was looking for plane tickets.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. The first thing I did was I typed in Svalbard Airport. Not a lot of options.
No.
Or be the first in Antarctica. I don't know. Just another thought. But yeah, cool. Anybody have any other comments, additional concerns? I personally, I'll probably be signing up. You probably made $5 today, Darren, at least, at the very least.
Welcome.
Because someday I'll defeat Korey's Slaves of Darkness It'll be great.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Whenever you need a Star Wars Legion coach,
Yeah.
I play second in an 8-person RTT. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm well suited to run that.
I mean, we should also chat in general about some like lengthy that. I know you kind of mentioned a real like sly comment of like competition is on the way, but we should all chat about some idea. We've had some ideas on our side too related to this. So anyway, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. It was nice personally to meet you digitally, and I know Korey and you guys have met before and stuff like that, and Cameron, I feel like you might have run into Darren at some point, but
we might have done it Worlds this year, but I'm not going anymore.
Yeah, I'm not either. Sad, big sad. But...
yeah, is anybody here going to? I don't think Cameron, you're not, and I'm not. I think that's like my wedding date or something like that. But the anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming and thanks for joining us, chat, folks. John, No More Legion, and Insomniac Painting, and Tristan. Yeah, everybody, thanks for joining us, and have a great Friday. And play some games this weekend with friends, and grab a beer if you drink, and if you don't, grab some tea. So yeah.
Cool. And
cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye. Like, share, subscribe. We do this every Friday.